Assalamu alaikum, beautiful. Welcome to Spiritual Awakening, Enlighten Your Soul Podcast. I am your host, Nazish. I found my inner light through self healing. I learned that every Muslim woman who is the light of her life have gone through different trials to get where she is today. So subscribe as we uncover hidden stories and learn from life experiences. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to Spiritual Awakening Podcast. Today, I am more than honored as I have finally with me Sister Shanela, who is the owner and founder of Holistic Pincups. I have been following her for quite some time now, and I know for a fact that she's an amazing speaker. And the way she puts her story out there, mashallah, I fell in love with your page. I fell in love with how you deliver. And thank you so much for being here today. Jazakallahu khairan, Sister Shanila.
Oh, Jazakallah khair for such a beautiful and warm welcoming, and it's my honor to be here with you today. And I can't wait to also share with you, because it's always tremendous that you always think, well, my story is my story. Are people really interested in it? And it's just really heartwarming when people really want to hear my truth, and it's beautiful. And if somebody hearing this can get some courage or some hope, then everything's worth it, inshallah.
Inshallah, that's the intention, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us to deliver that intention today. Let me quickly introduce you. Sister Shanila is a fertility expert who is an award-winning entrepreneur as well, and she helps women with their fertility by providing natural and successful solution for those who have been facing fertility challenges and womb-related issues. She established her successful business through her own personal experience with infertility, which then led her to becoming the therapist she couldn't find. She created the 3D fertility protocol that offers a physical solution to women struggling with fertility issues. Holistic Pincups is not just a brand, it's a partner on the path to a fulfilling and empowered life. MashaAllah. So
Jazakallah khair.
What led you to creating, this brand, and what is your backstory? What was your driving motivation towards it?
You've already said the sentence that is pinnacle to my journey, is with me becoming the therapist I couldn't find for myself. And my story is like every other story of South Asian background. You have the aspiration of becoming a wife and a mother, and I was married at the age of 19, and I thought my life was already mapped out. I was going to get married. After a couple of years, I was going to have children, and I was going to bring up my children and let the cycle of life be the normal cycle of life. But subhanallah, Allah had other plans for me, because we plan and Allah plan, and Allah is the best of planners. So subhanallah, I found myself in a circle of hope for 6 years, yearning for a pregnancy. At the beginning, it was like how every other pregnancy is, oh, it's fine, there's plenty of time. But then when you hit the 3 to 4 year mark of marriage, then it's like the aunties start saying good news. They start giving you some really cool tips, and they start questioning, and then you find the pressure coming. And subhanallah, majority of the pressure is never from the husband, it's always from the in-laws and from the aunties.
Oh, the brown culture.
We love it, but we hate it. It's like Marmite, isn't it? Subhanallah. And so then after 6 long years of trying to figure out my fertility myself, I finally got pregnant, alhamdulillah. And I had my daughter. And subhanallah, my daughter was born prematurely. So I was like, okay, subhanallah. And thinking back at it, between my daughter and my son is a 2-year gap, but I'm sure I had a miscarriage in between, but qadarullah ma shafa'a. And then I had my son, and my son was born prematurely as well. And so I only had one little request or one wish, that I wanted to hold a newborn and I wanted to breastfeed. That was the only request that I had, because my children were actually like 32 weeks, so very, very premature children as well. So subhanallah, so they were, when they were born, they were always whisked into the incubator.
Yes, yeah.
And so I was like, okay. So then my son, he grew up a little bit. He had some special needs, and so when I felt that it was okay for me to cope with another child, I thought, okay, let me try and get pregnant again, because all I want is a newborn, and I want to be able to be a mother, and have a normal birth, inverted commas, and that yearning led me to my first miscarriage. 1 became 2, 2 turned into 3, and 3 turned into 4. And in total, I had 5 devastating losses. And in each loss, I learned something new about myself, about my relationship, about Allah, and about my deen. And looking back at it, even though they were the most devastating things that I could go through, and I couldn't see the light in the tunnel, they were the best things that happened to me, subhanallah. I'll take you back to the 5th miscarriage. My 5th miscarriage was here in Pakistan. I'm in Pakistan at the moment. And I was this close into losing my uterus. So the doctor shouted at my sister-in-law, my husband, and said that she's got a girl and a boy. What else do you want from her? No more children, because she said that it was going to be detrimental to my life if I was to get pregnant again. So subhanallah, I had to deal with this information, because in Islam, preservation of life is uttermost, as opposed to bringing new life. So I knew Islamically now that I had to answer to my Lord if I decided to put myself in this loss again. So I had to reprocess it, because what am I? I'm only a mother. I'm only I wasn't an entrepreneur. I didn't have anything there. So it was like, well, what do I want to do? I'm young. I'm only I think I was 26, 27 at that time. So it was what am I meant to do now for the rest of my life? And as I was processing this and, social media scrolling, my son, who was 7 at the time, he came to me and he was like, "Mommy, stop it." And I was like, "Stop what?" He was like, "Stop being on the phone." I was like, "Why?" And he said, "Because it's not good for the baby." And I just had to look at him in the eyes. And I said, "There is no baby." And he just looked me back and he went, "Why does it always happen to us?" Because I was really strong on teaching my children qadar, the good and the bad of it. So I would say that the good qadar is that Allah wanted to give us a baby. And now the bad qadar, the qadar that we have to have sabr on. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. You know the haqq. After you know the haqq, you have to give the sabr. You don't have the sabr and then learn the haqq. You first understand the haqq and then you're tested with the sabr. And so I would say that now this is our test. That do we still turn to Allah? Do we still love Allah, even though Allah is giving us a test? But then there's a certain point in a young child's brain that a test then can become another form of resentment. So I had to now balance my own emotions. I had to balance my own body. And I also had to look after the relationship of a 7-year-old child, that his relationship with Allah. So I made the very difficult decision to not go back to the path of trying again. So now I'm not going to try again. So now what am I meant to do now? I was a hijama therapist and I did understand a few healing. I wasn't because through my son, whenever I would take him to a physiotherapist or anything, because he learnt to walk and crawl through swimming therapy. You name it, that boy had the therapy. And the message I would get from the therapist would always be, you would be a really good physio, you would be a really good massage therapist. So I was like, all right, then subhanallah, let me look into I had already done a hijama course way back because I was interested, because I had read the Prophet's book described. The Prophet's medicine described, sorry. Afwan. I was like, oh, that sounds wrong. And so I was like, okay, so subhanallah, let me now look into this and let me see if there's anything that resonates with me, that speaks to me. So then this journey then started off with, and then obviously you feel depressed and you want to do something. You need to do something. You need to be proactive, because I refused to become a mother yearning for something that she couldn't have. But now I've changed that, because now I help others that have got the possibility of motherhood, and that I give it to them. So now, alhamdulillah, subhanallah, through the fadl of Allah and through the brand of Holistic Pinkups, I'm proud to say that I've actually helped thousands of women achieve pregnancies naturally and successfully, and given them hope where I didn't have hope. And it's just such a huge honor to be able to say even these words.
Yes, definitely. MashaAllah. It's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put you in that test, in that trial, only so that you get so passionate about what you want to do. And we can sense it, right? Even the way you're talking, we can sense how passionate you are about this. And with all heart, you do your work, and then Allah puts barakah in it, right? So with hardship comes ease, and right there, your ease came through Holistic Pinkups, mashallah, tabarakallah.
And it's coming like tenfold. It's not even like one. Like seriously, when you, it's the tawakkul of Allah can be theory. The reliance of Allah can be theory, but when you see it working through your own eyes, through your own life, like for instance, when my son, he was born prematurely. He was on a life support, and my sister-in-law said, just do the haqiqah, and because like when you do the haqiqah, 100 diseases flee from the child. And so my husband, because he just wanted to give sweets out, and then my sister-in-law said, no, do this. So then he said, okay. And then he said, we're going to do the haqiqah. I was like, okay, inshallah, like whatever is best, or whatever you can do. And subhanallah, if we were to time, or if we were to have filmed him, the second the goat was slaughtered, my son started breathing by himself. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Like, there is speechless when you see that tawakkul. And subhanallah, I was able, there was a family in Pakistan, and what had happened is that a young couple, and she was pregnant, and her husband died in a motorcycle accident. And subhanallah, she had one child, like she was pregnant, and they said, if the child is a son, we'll take you in. If it's a daughter, you're going to go with your mother. And subhanallah, a daughter was born, and they were like goat sheep herd. So it was just a mother and daughter, and they didn't even have a fence around their house. They were just known for. And so my sister-in-law told me about her, and I started giving her sadaqah. And subhanallah, whenever I would give, like my son would get strength, I fast understood sadaqah barakah, sadaqah barakah, and till this day, that's my default settings. You have hardships, you do tawbah, you do sadaqah, bismillah. Hardship, tawbah, sadaqah, bismillah. And Allah will ease everything. And subhanallah, now I know, like India subcontinent, like now this girl, when the daughter was old enough, she then managed to get, I think she managed to get her some kind of job, because she was slightly educated as well. And then she refused the sadaqah. And I was like, and then I said, subhanallah, no wonder my son was getting the shifa, because Allah had written for my sadaqah to go to the correct place, because it's unheard of in the subcontinent. If someone's getting money, they're not going to say, no, it's fine. And she was like, no. And then because I remember I took some coats for the daughter. So she said, if it's a present, I'll take it. If it's sadaqah, I'm not. And I said, it's a present. So because I really wanted the daughter to have the coat. And then after that, we've never given it out. If she wants anything, she'll ask and we will help. But we won't help like we used to help. And I just thought, subhanAllah, that's such a fadl from Allah. I can tell you 100 stories. And I was reading a book on the Tawakkul of Allah. And what it said is that the Tawakkul of Allah, in the hardship, you see the ease and you don't complain about the hardship. That is true Tawakkul of Allah. And I only read that last week, and I was like, subhanallah, like Allah has blessed me to actualize that without even knowing that was the way that tawakkul worked.
Yes, indeed. It reminded me, like my father, he always tells me, like I have a chronic illness, and he always tells me, never complain. It is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah does not like when you complain about your trials. So never complain, never cry, and just be like, if you're crying to vent out, it's okay, but never cry because you are hopeless.
Yes.
A mu'min is not allowed to be hopeless. So it reminded me of that. Hello?
Too, I think on my subhanallah, it's so beautiful. Allah ordains the reminder always benefits the believer. And I remember maybe on the third miscarriage, my sister met one of my friends, and she was like, oh, how's Shanela? And she was like, well, she's having another miscarriage. And then she phoned me up, and I spoke to her a couple of years ago, and she actually doesn't remember this conversation, but it had such a profound effect on me. And she said, Shanela, remember, everything that comes from Allah, there's goodness in it. Everything that comes from Allah, there's goodness in it. But our inability to know the future, to know the truth, and our perception of it, we think it's the most worst thing in our lives. But when we look back in it, we'll only see shukr and goodness in it. And Allah is my witness that now when I look back at them 5 losses, like people will say, oh, I'm so sorry. I was like, la, there's no sorriness. There's only shukr and alhamdulillah, because Allah has blessed me to heal and I've had the tawfiq of seeing the blessings of them 5 miscarriages.
That's true. Now and I look back as well, I feel as if all the blessings started coming from the day I started realizing and accepting my illness. Allah opened many doors for me. Until then, I never thought that I would have never embarked on the journey of healing if it wouldn't have been for my illness in the first place. So, alhamdulillah.
And we are arrogant, because in the Quran, it tells us clearly, do you think you can say that you believe and you will not be tested? And this is what it is that, we're arrogant. We want tests according to us. We want victories according to us. Like, and like, alhamdulillah, I help women physically get pregnant naturally and successfully. But now I'm embarking on another project because, Shanela's mind is just, I don't know, the way Allah's created it. I'm always like, oh, okay, let me do something else now. I'm getting a bit bored of this, but I'm still going to help everybody. Don't worry about that. Like, it's my baby, but it's like, okay, then. So now how do I turn this baby now into a teenager? So my teenage thinking is that, subhanAllah, I have so many people that haven't got a relationship with Allah, or they have a relationship with Allah, but it's not, it's how can I say this? Like if you look at the definition of faith, yeah, when we say we have faith, when we say we have faith, it's to believe. Okay, so we believe in Allah, and we say we have faith, and we believe in Allah. And that's the linguistic meaning of everything. But when we look at it Islamically, what is to believe? To believe actually means belief in the heart, actions of the limbs, and speech of the tongue. So when I say, Alhamdulillah, I believe that this is a test and that I can overcome it, I'm only giving the speech of the tongue, the correct speech of the tongue. But I need to work on the actions of the limbs. So the actions of the limbs are doing my physical protocol, for instance. But then what about the belief in the heart? The true belief in the heart? Because I remember I was doing a Q&A. It all started because I was doing a Q&A, and one of the girls, the message she wrote was, I am never going to be a mother. And I was like, subhanallah. So that's her belief. I'm never going to be a mother. Can I change that belief? No, I can't. But then I thought, but how many women, she had the courage to say that to me, or, to write it to me. But how many other women in their heart of hearts believe that they're not going to be mothers? So then I decided to write a journal where what it is I'm getting the Quranic ayat, and then I'm talking about the reflections of it. So not tafsir or anything, but reflections on how we can develop a relationship with Allah, and then some journal prompts as well. So I'm really excited about this. And I also want to develop a fertility whispers program where I'm coaching women who are suffering from infertility to make them feel more positive and to develop their tawakkul of Allah and their acceptance of their test. Because others can have different tests. We can have tests of, I don't know, not wearing hijab, not praying, not doing salah, not praying zakat, or like listening to music. And like, it's only if somebody really knows us that they'll understand. But the test of infertility is very, very prominent. Yeah. And it's very, very hard, because sometimes, like even myself, like sometimes I have to acknowledge, does this person want me to speak nicely to them? Does this person want me to be completely silent? Does this person want me just to be someone who just holds their hand and says, I understand, I'm here for you? All three are correct. Yeah. There is no manual. This is how we talk to an infertile woman. You have to get to know that person, and you have to understand that, because it might be that woman, she might be able to be comfortable to talk to me about infertility, but she won't be comfortable if you talk to her about infertility. And that's okay. And we're so nosy, and we so want to and sometimes, we're very well-meaning. We want to help, but in reality, we're not helping.
Yeah. And they say that if you want to really help someone, instead of going and asking them about them trials, why don't you just make dua for them? If you know that they are being tested somehow, and you really think that you want to help them for good, make dua for them, right? That's the ummah for make dua for each other.
And it's so true. It's because alhamdulillah, Allah blessed me to do my umrah at the beginning of this month. And there were so many people that were like, make dua for us, and I was like, I've already done that. You don't need to ask. Because, my clients are dear to me. I made dua for my past clients, my present clients, and my future clients. Allah give me the shifa to help them. You're the one who gives shifa. I just said Bismillah, and, and give me the izzah to help these women that truly want to be helped. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. MashaAllah.
And I think we've got too much of a culture, make dua for us, make dua for us. And it's like, you know what? Like, it's now becoming, again, when I'm talking about the faith, it's becoming just an action of the lips, not true on your limbs or on your actions or on your heart. You know, a heartfelt dua for somebody is so powerful, but not a lot of people do it. I don't think a lot of people actually do that. And you know what? SubhanAllah, again, it comes back down to Tawheed again, because only I can make dua for myself. Only I can feel the pain that I'm going through. Do you really think that if I ask you, like, yeah, you know, like, Ukhti, please make dua for me, are you really going to make that really heartfelt dua? Are you really going to make dua for me sincerely? Like, you know, if you knew me, or if you really knew me like that, like, because now all I know is that you've got some kind of disease. I don't know anything else. So I might say, you know, Ya Rab, cure her, make it easy for her. But am I going to really get down in that sujood? Am I really going to beg my creator for shifa? I'll do it for myself because I'm selfish. But that's the way Allah has created us.
Yeah, I agree. And ever since I heard about, this, that when you make dua for somebody else, the angels around you are going to say that for you too. And that has kind of shifted me to putting others before myself. And now if I'm sitting in my tajid, I have, alhamdulillah, I know a few women who have chronic illnesses, different kinds as well. And so I would first make dua for them, and then I would make dua for myself, thinking that the angels are going to say for her too. But ever since I started doing this, something that I really want to mention is that my health had been really down for the past few months. But ever since I started doing this, that I remember others before me in my tahajjud prayers, I felt that Allah did grant me that shifa.
Alhamdulillah. But again, it's like you're using your pain and your relevance and your feelings for yourself to help to alleviate the suffering for another person. Just like how I'm using, like I say, it's turning your pain into purpose.
Yes. Yes. Now that we covered your lows and we also touched your highs, what I really want to know is that when you were in your lows, what kind of feelings you had? What kind of days you had? And how did you overcome those feelings? And here, when I'm talking about feelings, I mean the negative feelings. Did you adapt to a victim mindset? Did you start thinking, why me? And if you were in that spot, how did you overcome?
Going through a trial is very, very difficult, and you have the seven steps to acceptance, where first of all you have to feel the pain, and then you'll feel the anger, and then after the anger it will become the depression. After the depression you'll have the shame. And I always remember that I used to, each miscarriage I became better at managing my feelings. I got to the state quicker. But the first miscarriage, it just hit me for 6. And I remember even having a period of actually being quite angry with Allah and being saying, well, why me? Like, what have I done wrong? Why should I go through this? Everybody else who wants to get, like, we live in England, so it's like, well, any woman who has a one night stand can get pregnant, and why can't I get pregnant who really wants another child? But the thing is that I had a very beautiful network of friends that helped me turn back to Allah, but also gave me the space to grieve. But I also feel now, looking back at it, that almost I went through a self-destructive cycle. So I was very destructive in my actions and in my feelings, but I didn't understand that I was doing that. So I actually pushed quite a few good friends away because I didn't understand that I was hurting, and they didn't understand that I was hurting either. I had just gone a bit weird, and it was very, very hard, and I think the only thing that kind of kept me in thread was the Quran. I was memorizing some of the 30th juz there, and Surah At-Takathur. Whenever I read that, I will actually remember the the miscarriages as well, because I was always reading that and also thinking about death and thinking about the people that go to the grave and the reality of this life. It's a bit more morbid, but that's how I kind of got through it. And when you're going through a down spiral, you can be very, very self-destructive. And it was only after years I came across a therapist that I felt that could help me. And then I reached out and I got help. And that was when ultimately my journey of healing began, a couple of years after the last miscarriage. Because even though I was becoming a therapist, and understanding the science behind what was happening, the actual Islamic healing and the spiritual healing is a completely different story. And sometimes it gets to a point where you don't actually understand that you need healing, and you think you're healed, but you need something will happen, and it's like an onion layer. And to be fair, I would say that I'm still healing now.
Yeah. I think we all are in some or the other ways. Just how you said the onion layer, right? Something or the other, we have tried to push it under the rug, and it's just the trigger is left to happen for us to realize, oh, this bit.
It's now time to go down. I don't know how big this onion is. I'm not seeming to get. It's not going at all. This onion. I don't know how big it is, subhanAllah. I'm sure my onion would win world records of how big it is. Sorry, I have a big sense of humor as well. I always tell my clients, I go, listen, if you're looking for a serious therapist, you've chosen the wrong woman.
No, I think it's a blessing, right? Something you do that's serious, but at the same time, if you can have that moment where they are lightheaded and you can make them laugh, then I think it's a quality that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purposely gave it to you.
No, I know, subhanAllah, yeah, because subhanAllah, I'll have some people and they'll just come to the clinic and they'll sit down and they'll start crying. So I'll give them the tissues and I go, I know my face is a bit like this, I just have this effect that I'll make you start crying when you look at me like that. But and then they'll start laughing a bit. But subhanAllah, because you know what, it's like, it's so amazing, because sometimes my clinic or myself is the only place where someone can be real with themselves, because they've had to wear this mask and this facade of being okay, or or finally they've found somebody that can understand what they've gone through, and they're not going doolally in thinking the way that they're thinking, and the doctors are saying something else, but in their heart of minds they're thinking in a different way.
Yes, and the brown culture doesn't make it easy. So we all know that having a space where you can be vulnerable and open about yourself is so important. And mashallah, you are giving that space. What I really wanted to... Sorry.
Go on. No, go on.
What I really wanted to know is that after you stepped out of it, now when you look back, do you see there are any spiritual activities, anything that you did or perform that kept you holding onto the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because like you said, you were in that, after the first miscarriage, you were in that phase to the why me. And when we are in that phase of why me, we tend to sometimes loosen our ropes, right? So what was it that made you stick to the rope, and then probably also got you more closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because when you reached in your higher self, we can see that, we can witness that you are so close and deeply in touch with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Well, may Allah make me as good as what you think of me. Ameen. And and we always strive to become the best version and become as close to Allah as we can, because ultimately our being of creation is to worship Allah alone. And I think, alhamdulillah, I've been very, very privy to some very, very knowledgeable sisters, and we have weekly study circles. And I think that in itself, the knowledge, and I have one very, very profound friend of mine who, she always just says, like, Allah has blessed her, that she always says the right thing at the right time. And it's almost as I don't know if you come across the concept of different types of friends. And you have one type of friend, the higher friend, she's like medicine. So you go to her when she's sick, when you're sick, because she will help you with the cure. And that's not talking physical cure, it's also talking spiritual cure. So I would very much think that, and this friend of mine, subhanallah, she's always like, she'll always give me advice. And I'm privy to having lots of sisters, senior sisters, that take care of me very, very well. And I think that is what, and holding on to the jama'ah and holding on to the mosque, the Jummah prayer and the Tarawih prayer, and just holding on to that community, that this is who I am. And alhamdulillah, then slowly, Allah puts the balm of healing in your heart. Yeah. Slowly. And then you start developing better habits to get nearer to Allah.
Yes.
And also crying to Allah and beseeching Him and having a dua. Dua is a lot as well. And learning the tajweed as well really, really helped.
Alhamdulillah. What I really love about your story is that you did reach out to seek for help. And the fact that now you're mentioning that how community and biased friends helped you do that as well. So it's like a motivation for others, because we know in brown culture, people don't seek out for help. There's so much taboo with mental health support, therapist, counseling. So it is good that you did reach out for that help, and now you are that therapist who supports others. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. And again, like, I will still have my friends and my network that can help me as well and help me become a better therapist as well.
Yes, alhamdulillah. That's what the Ummah is for, right? To support each other and to promote each other towards growth. Alhamdulillah. And my last question for the podcast, and the most important one, I would say, is that being an expert with what you are doing, the woman who is listening and watching this podcast and going through infertility, she's in her lows, she is probably, just how you said, you were questioning why me, she's probably questioning why me, maybe a little turbulence in her tawakkul with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and she's starting to lose hope. What advice would you give her? What would you tell her?
I had a very nice colleague of mine. I was on a course and he explained something really, really well. And he called it the trilogy. And he asked me whether I believed in God. And I said, yes, I believe in Allah. So he said, so you put Allah first, then you put a person here. Now, if a person wants to get from A to B, like we've got a goal that we want to achieve, and if we get there and we achieve it, alhamdulillah, good, no problem. But if we have a goal and we want to achieve it and we're finding it difficult, then there's no problem in getting the corner of this triangle and using someone to help us, be it an expert, be it a friend, be it somewhere. So there's always this, and this is what the problem is that everybody wants to do that now. I have a new thing when it comes to infertility, when it comes to especially getting pregnant. A lot of my girls, they're in what I call the Inshallah cycle. Inshallah this month, Inshallah next month, Inshallah next month, Inshallah next month. But I promise you, you should be only in the Inshallah circle 6 to 9 months. If by 9 months you haven't achieved what you wanted to achieve, then instead of the Inshallah cycle, start the Bismillah cycle. Start the Bismillah cycle of seeking help.
Mashallah. I love that. Inshallah cycle.
Yeah, I'm writing a book, so I decided to call it the Inshallah cycle because I was, first of all, the concept was called the cycle of despair. And I was like, I really don't like that. Yeah. And then it really, really took me ages. And then I was like, well, actually, I think as Muslims, we're always in the Inshallah cycle. And we think the Inshallah cycle is very good. Like there's nothing wrong with the Inshallah cycle. But there is something wrong with the Inshallah cycle because sometimes what we're saying is our faith in our heart is what's going to bring us to achieve our goal. But Allah said, just like He says, be like them birds who go out in the morning seeking my sustenance. Them birds are not in their nest just sitting there and going, oh, Insha'Allah, Allah will provide with us. They're not. Allah has said those who go out in the morning seeking their sustenance. So go out, seek help, and then be in your Inshallah circle.
Yeah. And we call it tie your camel as tight as you can.
Yeah. But then sometimes I think because the tie of the camel, everybody's heard it so much, it's becoming now the billah, a little bit like, okay, what do you mean by tie the camel? Like we haven't got a camel, like we drive cars. So it's like that. So I've decided to start using the birds now because I'm like, okay. And again, it comes from the book that I read last week. So I'm a bit of a copywriter.
Well, I can't wait to read your book. MashaAllah, Tabarakallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put lots of barakah in your work, in your book. And you're already an amazing speaker. And it was an honor to have you. And I thoroughly enjoyed this session. Jazakallahu khairan, sister, for your time and for making us all laugh at the podcast.
Oh no, Jazakallah khair. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I've actually... you're so good at your questions that I've actually given some stories that I've never really told anyone else, and I've really enjoyed just flowing with this conversation. And so alhamdulillah, so inshallah, hopefully this is not our last podcast that we do together. I'm always up for part B.
Inshallah, alhamdulillah, maybe when you release your book we can have you again.
Oh yeah, inshallah, that'll give me motivation to get my action.
We can get some more stories out from your book.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.